So what we see here for the dollar is that the dollar did have a nice pullback today, but the pullback did begin even before the report came out. So before the GDP report came out, the dollar was already pulling back. We got the pullback towards this 106 mark, the mark that we were calling for as far as on Wednesday before Thursday even came. We were calling for it to stay underneath the 75, 75 cent, but still above a quarter. And as far as that being the range off of the news, because of the expectation for it to be neutral, we did get it dipping slightly below that before the news even came out. And then after that, that's when a greater dip happened. But that dip was more so because of fear of what could potentially happen as far as with Fed Powell. But with Fed Powell, even with that meeting actually was a very good meeting. It was a meeting of him with teachers. And so it got a chance to really showcase his personality. He really got a chance to shine as a person. And I think that that type of stuff is really important for members like himself to really shine as a person, because as he gets a chance to shine as a person, then as people get a chance to see who he is, kind of what he likes doing, that he's actually a real person, then people begin to understand the responsibility of the role more. And I think as even more traders get a chance to understand what takes place, because a lot of times people are ill-advised as it pertains to the different trade ideas. And so as more traders get a chance to see that this is real life versus because trading sometimes can feel like a video game because it just everything just seems digital. And so with him kind of just showcasing his personality, speaking up for the rest of the members of the Fed, really defining the Fed, what the Fed does, answering those questions that some high schoolers had, as well as some of those high school teachers had. I think that was a really good move, especially going into what is going to be a bearish Friday. As far as the consensus numbers, because early in the AM at 8:30, we do have those core PCE numbers, as well as those good trades balance and the consumer sentiment. All of those coming in tomorrow, and all of those are expected to be bearish reporting, those coming in lower than the consensus numbers. And so with that, we are expecting for the dollar to drop. So if we're looking at what it is that we have, the dollar can drop a sizable amount. So the dollar can indeed lose this 106 area and come back to this 105.75 area, because even if the dollar dips all the way back down to this area, the dollar is still up on the week. So we have to look at everything in perspective. So the dip that we're getting on the dollar still has the dollar up for the week. That is super important to keep in mind. Super important to keep in mind that even if we get a dip back down to the minor quarter area below, the dollar is still up for the week. So everything in perspective. So this would then still make the 11th straight week of the dollar's run. So even with this pullback, the dollar would still be up for the 11th straight week. Now, if the dollar were to lose 105.75, then that would be a different story as far as what we're looking for with a potential reversal, and then looking towards next week and the news that is coming out for next week. But without that, especially with the way that the stock market bounced today. So with the way that the stock market bounced today, if the stock market is going to end the week in that same way with this news that is coming out, then that would lead to a more bearish outlook on the dollar. The reason being is because that means that the stock market is picking up on signals of a more dovish stance, that whole idea of a soft landing. So with that being the case, then we would get a stronger dollar pullback if that is the case. Where we would then get the stock market pushing up. So the stock market did push up today in a very nice way, very solid way, especially going into a Friday. But it is a bearish Friday as far as an expected bearish Friday. So we could get a pullback. But then again, we have to wait and see. So again, the number that we're looking for, as far as for the pullback on that news, as far as the bearish news that is expected, if those numbers do indeed come out in the same way that we are expecting them to, we are looking for 105.75 to hold, because we had multiple touch points there last week before this week shot up through that same area. And then even after we saw this week shoot up through that area, we then saw this idea come back down to the weekly start and then push back up. So this was really retesting this area, but also making sure that the buyers that started off the week were going to continue this move upward for the dollar. So that's what we have for the dollar as far as the dollar's outlook. We still have for the UC idea, that one is up for the week, but it is still below that wild card area. And then we have for the GU idea, again, that idea is forming a sort of a flag because if more bearish news comes out tomorrow for the dollar, which is the expectation, we could see this move up to that major quarter area of 122.5. 122.5, we could see that move potentially. And then we also have for the euro, we have this idea flagging in very like manner. And so we can see this idea continue to move up to that 106 flat area, that minor dime area, that 106 flat area. We have for the AU idea. So for the AU, again, that same sort of a flag area. There we can see this one come back up to its weekly open, and we'll see how it responds to its weekly open. And then for the NU idea, we'll see how this one responds to the minor quarter that is above it, that has been rejecting it the entire week here. And so we'll see kind of how that responds there. We also have for the UJ idea, we have for this idea, we do have this one up for the week still. And so again, this one can come down, retest this 149, because as you can see, there is a solid block here of buyers that were here at this 149 area down to 148.75. So we can get this one to pull back and still be bullish at 148.75 if that news does indeed come in bearish. But we have to wait and see how that news does indeed come in.